All right, so I'm live here, and this is the first episode of a new live stream weekly and podcast called 52 Weeks of Swift. It's part of a larger umbrella, 52 Weeks of Languages, where I cover different languages like the Go language, C sharp language, Rust, you name it. I'll probably cover it at some point in the future. But for now, and at least let's say for the next year or so, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with the Swift language. Part of this is because of a few different reasons. One, way back in the day, in the early 2000s, I was actually doing Cocoa development. And one of the things I did was actually build a commercial uh, desktop application for the OS 10 operating system, and it was a deduplication tool where it allowed you to look through your file system, kind of get this visual display of all the duplicates and then decide which ones you wanted to clean up. So this was actually the first week the store launched for the desktop. I had an app in there, it was in there for several years, and did well actually financially from the application. I wrote that with the Objective C language. I know longtime Apple fanboys love Objective C. Even though I made, I would say probably six figures at least developing professional software for the uh, the OS 10 operating system. I hated Objective C. I just really don't like it. I just felt clunky and just really to manage memory and all kinds of really tricky stuff. If I'm going to be called a wimp because I don't want to manage memory, that's fine. But I really didn't enjoy it. Now, Swift is a totally different thing, though, because what I like about the Swift language is it's very high level, and it reminds me of things I've done with the F sharp programming language, also with Python. And I really love that it has type inference. So I think this is the future, is languages like Swift. I think the older languages like Python, there's a lot to like about it. But what is interesting about Swift is it feels like the future, or either Swift or a language like Swift. The reason for this is, why would you not have type inference? This is something that just helps your code be more reliable. Also, it has things like immutable variables. And so many times you don't want your variables to be mutated. And that comes with it. You have an awesome compiler. That's yet another thing that I think is a problem with scripting languages, is the lack of a compiler can cause huge problems in terms of reliability and then performance. I mean, I think we're at this period now where people, I feel like, are burning lots of CPU cycles doing things that they don't need to. And when you're using language like Swift, it's very efficient. So that's just from a high level. The other thing I really like about the Swift language is that it also interacts with the whole iOS and OS 10 ecosystem. So you can do things like build watches, you can build TV apps, you can build desktop apps, you can build mobile apps. And so that's what I'm going to be covering over the course of the next year. It's just a little bit each week. I'll be playing around with something. By no means am I saying that I'm, a guru at Swift at all, but I'm going to be approaching things from somebody that's kind of getting back into the OS 10 development space. And I think probably I'll even get to the place where I can demo some commercial apps that I'm building and show you how to build a commercial app and put it into the App Store. But we're going to start very basic today, and I'll cover some things that I've been playing with this week. Additionally, the other thing that I think is interesting about the Swift ecosystem is I've spent a lot of time with machine learning, and I wrote a book recently on MLOps. And there's a lot of fun stuff happening in the machine learning and computer vision space with the Xcode environment. And so I'll probably cover some of that as well, and talk about it. So that's really where I'm coming from, is just exploring the language over the next several weeks, and also telling you, things I'm working on, and probably eventually I'll get to the point where I walk you through, how to build a commercial style application and then put it into the App Store. So if that sounds interesting to you, feel free to subscribe to this podcast. It'll probably be published in the next couple days or so. And then also feel free to subscribe to the live stream. It's going to be every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. All right, so that's the precursor for the stuff that I'm working on. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And what I will do is, let's see here. I will probably start off with just an overview of some of the stuff I've been working on in terms of code. And so here's this repo, Noah Gift, 52 weeks of Swift here. And I guess a couple things to point out with, to start out with, is that in terms of Swift, a great place to start, and I'm actually going to probably use this as a reference and riff off of it a little bit for the next several weeks, is to go into the official Swift tour. And this would be docs.swift.org. And so, one of the first things that you would do is just, print the hello world here. And then you can go through all this tutorial. And there's a lot of really cool things about this that I think are nice. And in particular, what's nice about it is that in this getting started guide here, you can actually walk through, every single thing that you can do in terms of Swift, including installing it, using a REPL, using a package manager, and then also just the documentation, right? So like the Swift language, how does it work, language guide. And then this is, I think, where I'll start after this week. I'll get into, just walking through step-by-step basic operations, strings, collection types, control flow functions, closures. I'm a huge fan of closures, error handling, concurrency. So we have a lot of different weeks that we can cover things in the Swift language. So that's the start there. The other thing that I'm going to walk you through as well is how to use the playground, which in my opinion is probably the best way to get started with Swift. Is that I'm going to go through here and I'm going to launch this playground, and then I'm going to just build out some code and just kind of walk you through step by step, how things work. So I think a good place to start then would be to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to switch over to a Xcode screen. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that real quick, and I'm going to say File, New, Playground, and then we'll just start from this screen. So let's go ahead and stop this screen, share a new one, which will be the Xcode playground. All right, so you can see here that I've selected a new playground, and what's nice about this playground here is that it gives me the ability to build out whatever it is I need to build out in an interactive fashion. And what I like about this style is it's similar to things like, for example, a Jupyter Notebook or Colab. And so I'm going to go ahead and say blank here, go next, and then I could just put this somewhere. I'll just put this into, I don't know, like the top of my drive and say like temporary or something, just so I can get rid of it later. Or temp. Here we go. That's easy. And the first thing that I would recommend doing when you get into this playground is just kind of making things comfortable for you so that you have enough space to see everything that's going on. And so that could be bringing things, the screen around, turning things around. But to start with, you'd want to import Cocoa, and then you would set up a mutable variable like var. So in this case, it'd be var greeting, hello playground. There we go. We've got this thing running. And what'll happen is when you're inside of this environment with Swift, on the right, it will go through and it will show you, whatever it is you're building, like hello playground, inside of here. And so what I'm going to do next, though, is I'm going to go through and just build out some different things inside. So I'm going to first start off with the variables, right? And so inside of here, just to point out here the differences between other languages. If I say var name is equal to Marco, right, this would be a mutable variable, and I can do shift return, and it will go and print it out. If I say let's put a name in here, and we just say Polo, uh, what's different between var and let is immutable. And as I mentioned earlier, immutable is awesome because it really protects you from weird bugs that are unintended. And so if I try to change this variable, uh, uh, this immutable variable last, and I say like blob or something like this, it's going to blow up, right? It won't let me do it. In fact, the playground says cannot assign to value last is a let constant. So that's pretty cool, right? That I have that protection built in there. The other thing that I think is a cool thing to cover is this concept of phrases inside of the Swift, and this is something you do all the time when you're building command line tools, or you're building some kind of a template, or whatever it is you're building. And so, how do we do this? Well, I'm going to make two examples here. I'm going to say fruit one, and we'll say apple, and then I'll go through here and I'll say fruit two, and this one will be a orange. I'll use let, right, for to make them a constant. And then what I'll do is I'll say let snack, and I'll say I like to eat, and then I put this slash here, and the reason for this is that I can put inside of the parentheses the variable I want to substitute. I like to eat a, and then I just put in whatever fruits that I want to handle here. So this is what's kind of cool about this is it's slightly different string formatting than other languages, but you can see here it's just a slash and then parentheses. Boom, we've got a statement here. Now, what if I want to create an array in a dictionary? Very common. I mean, every language that you can think of has both an array and a dictionary. Bash has this, Z Shell has this, PowerShell has this, Python has this, C Sharp, every language has this concept of an array and a dictionary. And so what we're going to do is we'll just try out both. We'll say array and dictionary, right? And then inside of here, we can just go through here and just build things out. And in fact, I'll just be lazy and just put some code I already have here. And so what I do is I say var fruits, and I put them inside of these square brackets, apple, orange, cherry. And then to access one of the fruits, I can just say the index, right? So it would be zero indexed, which would mean the first thing. And then if I want to append something to it, I can actually go through here and say fruits.append, and then it'll put it into this. Uh, Again, what's awesome about this is I have really good, ability to play around with this by using this environment, this playground. Dictionary, same thing. If I say var meal and I go in here and I put just inside here key value pairs, dinner, steak, lunch, salad, breakfast, fasting, I can say let dinner, and then I say equal meal, and then put in the key dinner. And that what that would do, it would just access basically the key, and then it would return back the value, which in this case would be steak. So very, very intuitive language to play around with. The other thing that I'll mess around with here is a for loop, and in this example here, you can see I have some control flow, and I say this is, I think, one of the best ways to learn a language is build a for loop. I say for fruit and fruits, and I say if the fruit is equal to an apple, then print out I love to eat fruit, and do that same string substitution with the backslash and the fruit in parentheses, and then I add an else and say if for every other match, go ahead and print out the other fruit. And you can see here at the bottom of the environment here, it says, I love to eat an apple. I'm okay with eating oranges. I'm okay with eating cherry. I'm okay with eating pear. These are all things that I can play around with here in this for loop. Now, the final thing that I'll say here is that functions are really, really fun to play around with, and in my opinion, this is really kind of makes you master a language is to build a function. All functions work the same. There is a unit of work that's in the middle. There's an input and there's a return. And so in this case, what we want to do is build something using func. That's the keyword. I put in the word Marco Polo, and then with a language like Swift, it will ask me to declare the type of the input. I'm going to say it's a string, and then I also say I want to return back a string, and then I say var greeting is equal to no. So I set up a default greeting, and then I say if the name that's passed in, the string that's passed in, matches Marco, so it's equal, then return back the greeting Polo. So mutate that variable and return it back. Otherwise, just return back the default greeting. And so if I do this, and it won't run, because all it is defining what would happen if I call it. In order to invoke it, now I need to test it out. And so we can just go through here and we can say Marco Polo and put in, the word Marco, and this will return back Polo. If I want to say Marco Polo and then put in, another name like Bob, this will return back no, right? So very good way to play around with things. And in fact, structure your code. I think building functions out like this is a great way to logically, test out an idea. In fact, this code space is this playground here is so fun that why not just build out your functions, your for loops, try these different ideas out, and then later you can build it into a new project. So what I'm going to do next here is I'm going to kill this for a second, and now I'm going to open up a new Xcode project, and I'm going to say new project, and I'm going to share my screen again here. And what I'm going to build out is a command line tool. This is another thing I was working on this week. And so if we go to command line tool here, we just say next, and we could just call this product something. We'll just call this, CLI. That looks good. Same thing. I'll just put this in my desktop somewhere. And then I can actually do a lot of stuff now that I've got this built into this this interface. What I can start off with is inside of here we have the hello world, and to run it I can just go through here and just click on start it. It goes through, it builds it. We just make sure everything works right. That's just the hello world. But most command line tools, and you can see the outputs below, almost all useful command line tools will have some kind of option argument parsing library. And so to do that, I can just go to File, Add Packages, and this is the thing that pops up. And these are all official Apple packages, which I think, in my opinion, I'm a huge fan of the official people that make the language. Let's first at least look what they're doing, so that if it's good enough, I want to stay there. You're taking a huge risk by just kind of wildly trying to find other people's libraries. Not that you don't have to, but why not start with something that's basic and try it out first. So in this case, we say Swift argument parser, and then it even gives you this whole like set of instructions here on how to build things out. And so I'm going to go ahead and just click add package, and then it will add this thing inside. And what's nice about this thing is that it will go through and add this thing to my my Xcode project. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and find another project that I had set up, and I'm going to take some of the code and just paste it in here. So basically, if I go through this project and I replace some of the things I've got in here, I'll walk you through what's happening. So the first thing that I do is I have the ability to import that argument parser that I included as a package. So I say import argument parser, and then I go through here and I build a struct, which is a repeat parsable command. And inside of here, we have the flag here. And then we also have the ability to have the number of times I'm going to repeat. And so what we do, as well as we have a var phrase, and this var phrase is the phrase that I want to complete. So basically there's three things that can happen. It's whether you want to include the counter, by default is false. Whether, how many times you want to, repeat a phrase, and this would be a var count. Remember, because var makes it mutable, this would allow us to put different inputs in. And then we have var phrase, which is the string. So, and at this point we say mutating function, we say run throws, and inside we say for every item that comes up in the repeat count, if we've included the counter, right, which is the thing that lets us count the phrases, then go ahead and print the phrase, a certain number of times. And then in order to invoke it, I say repeat dot main. So it's about 25 lines of code or so. And if I go ahead and I run this, this will go ahead and build this out. And then notice at the very bottom here in the output, it says, error, missing expected argument phrase. And it expects you to say repeat, and then put in, a count for what it is you're building. So there's a couple ways that we can actually now test out this command line tool. One of the ways I like to do it is I like to go to the there's a section here where we can actually go to the product and show the build folder for the product in the Finder. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say basically build for running first. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and find that location. So we'll go through here and we'll say products and go ahead and find show build folder in the Finder. Here we go. And notice that I've got this thing right here, debug, and I've got this CLI. So I can open up a terminal, and this is one of the cool things about using a framework like this with Swift and Xcode and everything, is that I've got a lot of power at my fingertips here. I can just go through and just drop this executable into my shell. And there we go. And if I just go this, right, it says, boom, it's already ready to go. And I could use this as a binary and basically create a deployment process that syncs this up on my machine. So now all I need to do is I just say the phrase, right? So I could say, today is a great day for Swift, and do this. And then boom, it goes through and it says today is a great day for Swift. Now, in my case, what I want to do is say counts, and then say 5. And then we see today is a great day for Swift. And then it goes through and it prints out 5. If I want to do another, phrase or do something else, we can also say like, hello world or whatever, hello world, and then do counts 2, right? So very straightforward tool to play around with, but the general idea is that you can build out very high performance command line tools using the Swift framework, especially if you go through here and you use things like the third party packages. And so in a nutshell, I think that's probably a good place for me to end up for the day. And I'll just say that, we're going to cover a little bit like this each day, something I'm working on, maybe, command line tool, mobile app, iOS app, TV app, or some parts of the language, and probably, anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes. So hope to see you next week at 4 p.m. and I'll cover some more with 52 weeks of Swift. All right. See you soon.